Hello guys, my name is Will and welcome to one more video about Dragonheir Silent Gods. In this one we are talking about the Drizzt, the new character, and I'm gonna share some tests I did with you. Which actually I did a lot of tests and you guys will know about everything that you need to know, if this guy is worth to summon or not, if you need the artifact or not. I did plenty of tests, guys. So I tested the legendaries, I tested the artifacts, I tested epics, okay? Against everything against Drizzt, alright? I'll go over all of that and we'll explain everything. So first thing first, we need to talk about Drizzt, right? So this guy attacks on this area, does 3 hits and deals cold damage. And for any enemies afflicted with frost, this skill ignores 15% defense. And for every 1% lost by the target, the damage is increased by 0.6 up to 30%. So this is the first thing. The way I tested was not possible to get this bonus, okay? But you need to think about this will be useful in content like boss, like dungeons, basically. Will be dungeons, some PvE content, because Vortex doesn't lose any HP lost, okay? It's like unlimited. You need to do the maximum damage, so there's no benefit from this. On the Continental Challenge is exactly the same thing. You need to do the maximum damage. The life is like illimited, so they will not die. You need to do as much damage as possible, so you're not getting any benefit from this bonus on the most important content, okay? So this is already a downside. Battle skill, it deals damage, and with Enrage, each of these skill will increase the number of hits for the next use. That's fine. Passive will have the Dragonheir, okay? That can do some damage and some AoE damage as well, alright? And she provides some stacks, okay? She provides a planar ally that gives us 4 extra % attack and 4% attack speed, okay? 10 stacks of this, which will be 40% extra attack and 40% attack speed. So all of this on paper looks quite nice. And then we get this artifact that can reduce the target defense by 2.5% up to 4 stacks, which can reach 4 stacks will be 10%, alright? 10%. So this guy on paper looks really nice. And I did some tests and I tried, as always, do a fair comparison, okay? So I did some tests. I used 3 sets mostly on the main damage dealers. So initially, we have the Frost characters, and initially I used Drizzt with Auster, Hvitar, Lucania, and Oceandir. Okay, that was it, and always with the bonus of attack percentage 24. All right, and I did this, and I noticed that these guys, these supports, they really help a lot to increase our Frost damage. This guy, Oceandir, gives attack up to the Frost ally with the highest attack, and Lucania, she provides this mark on the ally that will deal cold damage. So basically the first test I did only with gear, so only this gear without runes, and the results was Lucania doing around 600 damage, Oceandir around the same, Auster did 900 damage, 900,000 damage, Hvitar did almost 1 million, and Drizzt did 1 million. So I was very surprised with these results because Drizzt was actually doing most of the damage. But then we did the second one. So the second test we did the same thing but with runes, alright? Runes are all and always the same thing. Attack on the positive rune for all the 3 and resistance rune for the other 3, okay? And the results was around the same thing. So Lucania did 850,000, Oceandir did 500,000, Auster did 1,159,000. Hvitar did around 1 million. Drizzt did 1,200,000. So again, Drizzt did a pretty good amount of damage, and this was quite nice. But don't forget that Lucania is probably marking him to deal this rounding damage, or even Oceandir is giving the buff with the 20% attack up. So I solved that issue on the next tests, okay? Not the next one, but eventually I solved it. But then I did the same test with the same team, full gear with artifact. So I used this frost artifact, okay, the Ring of the Winter. I used the artifact on HVTR, and I used the new artifact for Drizzt, alright? So I did this, I did the same fight, 2 minutes against a single target, and then Auser, obviously, it was crazy, did almost 2 million damage, HVTR Drizzt did around the same damage, while 1,500,000 damage, okay? Then I did a solo damage, which was basically using only one of these characters with the supports without using the other two. So I did, and besides this, also because Drizzt was giving the defense, this defense percentage penalty, and this could affect the damage, right? So I did another one with these two supporting, and one of them, the first one, Auser, just did 2,300,000, which is huge. HVTR did 1,700,000 almost, and Drizzt did 1,000,000, almost 400,000. Okay, so Drizzt didn't perform that well, even with the support of these two. And Auser, of course, did an amazing damage. Right, so what I did next was removing the support. So I removed these two, I kept these three, so no supports, just pure damage, and of course the defense penalty from Drizzt. So I did this with no support, solo, these three guys, and the difference was not that big. We did solo against a solo target, Auser did again 2 million damage, HVTR did 1,600,000, and Drizzt 1 million, almost 400,000. So again, Drizzt was on the downside. But then we want to know about the area of damage. So having these 5 guys here instead of 1, because all of them, they do a pretty good amount of area of damage. So I did again, and at this point, no chance for Drizzt. HVTR did 7 million damage, Auser did 6 million, and Drizzt 3 million, which is like half or even less than half of the damage the other two did. So they did much, much better. So again, I did AoE, the same thing, but without Drizzt. I used another one, just to check how much damage they could do and to see how much Drizzt was affecting that damage. And again, HVTR did 8 million damage, Auser did 6 million. So this debuff doesn't affect that much, alright? And because of this, I thought, so if you guys see this artifact, this provides defense percentage. So you can affect with 10% defense, reduced defense, alright? But what if you sacrifice the damage on Drizzt and use instead the Witch's Remain, okay? Because ideally you will use Witch's Remain and also this artifact, so you will get 10% from here plus 60% from here, okay? Not 60%, 50% from the defense penalty too, alright? Which was going to be much better, right? So I did the same test, and instead of using the artifact from Drizzt, I used the Witch's Remain, and the total damage, so without the Witch's Remain, we did 5 million damage. With the Witch's Remain, we did more 700,000 total damage. So of course, Drizzt did less damage, for sure. It did less, did a little bit less, not a big difference to be honest, but HVTR did almost 2 million damage and also did 2.5 million damage. Okay, so did the damage that was increased on HVTR and Auser compensated much more the damage lost on Drizzt. Okay, so this was a huge one. All right, this was a huge one. So of course at this point you guys want to know with epics. So I did exactly the same tests with Drizzt. I removed these two guys, and to keep it fair, I used Rava just to help with the buff. I used Rava, and then I used the other ones, always with the same equipment. So I equipped on Usha with the same artifact. I did a single fight for each one to keep it fair. So I did with Vidimir, Rowena, which is this one. So we have Usha, we have this one, and Vidimir. Okay, so I used these three, one at a time. So Vidimir, of course, is not a big single damage target, the damage dealer. He did almost 900,000. Rowena did 1,340,000, and Usha did 1,400,000. Okay, so comparing with Drizzt, what he did without node support, single target damage, they did more or about the same as Drizzt. Okay, so yeah, epics can be better, similar or better than Drizzt. That's the truth. But of course, if you want to use him as a defense penalty applier, probably will be a good option, because you can use it 3 times, so you can cast his skill 3 times, which means the damage can be the chance to apply defense penalty can be higher. So again, I did the same test, but area of damage, and of course, here was a bit different. Vidimir did more damage than Drizzt on area of damage, comparing with this damage. Then Rowena did more damage than Drizzt, and Usha, because Usha has a different area of attack on the ultimate, she did less damage, but not too far. Okay? So with all of these tests, and I did this always with the same stats, 24% attack damage on aura, and all of that, I tried to keep everything as fair as possible. I came to some conclusions, as probably you guys came with some conclusions already. Drizzt doesn't look that amazing on paper, I must say. If you read the skills, it looks amazing. He ignores defense percentage, his artifact, he reduced the defense as well, so everything looks amazing. Alright, so if we have a look, gives attack percentage, attack, amazing, right? But after using them on these tests, Drizzt doesn't look that great. Okay, all these epics that I used, they look quite the same, and they don't need no investments like Drizzt needs. Of course, eventually you can inspirate Drizzt, and after inspirating him, of course, he will be a bit more stronger. You get more percentage on his stats on the first one, second the same thing when dealing damage for every 15%, increase damage. This one increases crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, and ignores 15% of target's defense. So of course, you will become good with inspiration, but you need to invest a lot to get all of these inspirations. Epics, you don't need any investment, and from the baseline, they do the same thing or better than Drizzt. Besides that, his artifact doesn't provide much as well, because he provides his more attack percentage and more stuff, and for free-to players, maybe it's a good option and will be a good artifact, but at the same time, if you already can get the Witcher's Remain can do a better job than Drizzt's artifact. Alright? Unless you can apply both, Witcher's Remain defense penalty and the artifact defense penalty, I don't think it's worth it. Okay, that's just my opinion. Comment below what you guys think. If this artifact, of course, it's worth it if you are getting it easier, because with the summons you get much more, it's much more easier to get, but I don't think that will do much better than using Witcher's Remain. Witcher's Remain will be better after all. So this is my conclusion. Drizzt is not that great. He's not doing a big amount of damage. I don't know if they are changing something on the future. On the previous version of the game, Drizzt was not so great as well. Without that, with his new artifact, they could improve him a little better, but still feels a bit weak. So it can be a good option for free-to players, but even for free-to players, all the epics or even the rare Usha can do a good job, and you don't need to invest mastery scrolls on that character. So if you want my opinion, you are a free-to player or a low-budget player, don't invest mastery scrolls on him. I don't think it's worth it. If you are a whale, then whatever, just buy more mastery scrolls and scroll him. But yeah, this was the test. I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment below what you think, what is your opinion about Drizzt, the artifact, and all that I show in this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and see you in the next one.